It's 13:39, and I'm uploading again for the interest of the people that have been reprimanded regarding their crimes against the human right of faith, religion, and spirituality, and that also have been remanded or reprimanded for their financial racketeering. As I've mentioned, I'm not obligated, I'm not obliged by any means of the imagination, but for public record, I am being impoverished by people living off my wealth and my social reform, and that have been of exploitation of my spiritual purpose in the southwest of Ireland. These people have gone through their own personal transformations, and they are at the moment spinning a new tune to the lyrics that they've been waxing tirelessly in the form of hate crime in the southwest of Ireland. So at the moment, there are people in my proximity that have been attempting farm fraud from my properties in Ardfort and Kilflin. They have been of financial debt evasion and financial racketeering of individuals abroad, which became uncovered as a consequence of my social reform inputs and my recovery advocacy. So just that the Vatican is aware, the spiritual purpose I hold is quite precious to my family and I and my child. And there are thugs, basic thuggery is at play by individuals that are singing off a hymn sheet that is blasphemous. They are already guilty of stealing awful amounts from people as well as myself, and they have been doing this theft, fraud, etc. from my livelihood since 2006, and now they've stolen a child I gave birth to. They've also avaricious agendas regarding my farm holdings with their racketeering and their financial fraud tactics. So this is for the interest of the dangers, those that are concerned with the dangers regarding the role of the Vatican and the role of the Interpol agency. I've contacted the European Union as of 2019, but these perverts of privacy and identity thieves have offended the role of the European Union. They've offended the United Nations as well, and they hopped and skipped to the United Nations with an agenda that compromised the role of the United Nations when they discovered by cybercrime that I had contacted the European Court of Human Rights regarding the crime I'm experiencing. So now it's in the best interest of Interpol and the Vatican to be aware that there is a new stage after developing in southwest Ireland regarding the identity of individuals in society that are guilty of crimes against the state, the constitution, and children in general, as well as my own child. So they are responsible for debt evasion. There are people in my proximity that are thinking they're going to try another racketeering tactic. Now, my recovery advocacy has recovered people's wealth. My social reform has prospered people in different shapes and forms, not just monetarily. And I'm being impoverished because of thugs with basic IQ and with aspirational agendas to jump onto my professional portfolio. Unfortunately, they're living off my wealth, they're living off my social reform, and they're not safe on my farms. So these people, I would like Interpol in particular to really address this immediately. I'm owed debts from the United Kingdom and Ireland. There are people in my proximity that are of more racketeering, and they have offended my farms and my ancestors. They've also offended my child, and they've also brought the HSE into disrepute as well. So these people are in the guise of practitioners. They're supposedly qualified nurses and doctors of Ireland, but yet they have been labelled enemies of the state. So they're offending right protocol. That's dangerous, and they have no right or remit with my child, and they are heavily indebted to my name personally, and they are frauding legislation from me. So, for the interest of the Vatican and Interpol, there's a new stage in crime occurring in the southwest of Ireland from where the heroin addicts that have suffered immeasurably, there have been heroin addicts that have suffered so much. It is horrific what I have witnessed in society, and hopefully those addicts recovering can empathize and understand where I'm coming from as a recovering adult and as a recovery adult and advocate with 20 years that fortunately now has legislation to my portfolio. So those people that are insulting the recovery process north and south of the border with more financial racketeering are a liability unto themselves, and they're a liability to the authorities. So people that are in my proximity with the agenda, initiative or the motive to compromise the safety of my farms or my child or my family or any of the deaths that they've been evading and exacerbating in this community in the southwest of Ireland since 2006. It is now 2023. They have damaged the role of the United Nations and the Declaration. They're absolutely embarrassing with their they're stalking me continuously, and they're living off my creative intellectual property, and they have no entitlement whatsoever. So anyone associating with these frauds are in a circus that is quite embarrassing, and they're making themselves unsafe with faith, family and fellowship with fraud, and they have compromised so many other outstanding, upstanding citizens of this society that I'd say there's a queue behind me with regard to the grievances that have to be addressed due to these liabilities claiming to be authorities in other people's lives with dirty agendas and dirty initiatives and dirty money and dirty business to get onto a mother and child's homesteads where they are absolutely utterly unwelcome. So for the interest of the Vatican and Interpol, I have European royalty. I have a spiritual purpose of ascension that commenced via recovery advocacy. I'm experiencing poverty as a consequence of common daylight, broad daylight, thuggery and thievery. And my child is a missing person, just reported seen today, just earlier, within the past hour. So if everyone is really practicing integrity or honorability or respect, and if they have concerns already about what's already happened in this community as a consequence of the crimes that have been conducted against me without resolution or without reparations, then there's no praying our way out of one problem into another problem, as these nonsensical idiocies have suggested. These people have started one spiritual cultivation process to cause destruction with the aid of heroin, and then they've gone on and they've caused a recovery spiritual process with a new agenda to cause more problems. It's embarrassing that anybody would associate with this nonsense. It's absolutely embarrassing. So they have obstructed and compromised the role of the United Nations. They've compromised the role of psychiatry. They've compromised the role of the authorities, the Garda Síochána and Interpol. They have been making assertions about people and false reporting my good name and defaming my character while living off social reform for me. They're speaking out of place. They're in a place where they shouldn't be, and they are making a very dirty debt upon themselves that they can't evade because they've already paid a price. And this is the logic. These people have no rationale. They're mentally, obviously, obstinate, you know. So it's in the best interest of those individuals to remove my farm holdings from their agendas. It's not safe offending my holy matrimony that is legally intact. I would like the Vatican to contact me personally also regarding the crimes I've experienced throughout my matrimony and the legal frauds, calling themselves lawyers, offending the Church of the Catholic faith that I am married in, and the child that I gave birth to that was baptized in the Catholic Church. So the Interpol and the Vatican agencies are now, after about 4 or 5 stages of very dangerous criminality that I've addressed and resolved and been confronted with or contending with, The crime prevention has been futile with these liabilities. They're social influencers. They're marauding and masquerading themselves with new agendas that are unsafe for children's futures. They have not been in line with the ethics codes, values of humanitarianism, sustainability, environmentalism, or anything of the sort. They have no practices in line with good faith. They are not entitled to an opinion regarding other people's family units where they have imposed and violated the privacy and confidentiality of. So they're in breach, they're in contempt, they've no right or remit, they're the simple concepts. So those that are using debt evasion tactics with more debt racketeering, these people need to be very careful about what I owed from the United Kingdom and Ireland. As I've said, there's a Canary Wharf initiative that I think everyone should look at the origins of and source of that huge amount of solar power. As I've said, I have huge concerns with the misaligned or maligned. There's no alignment between the practice and the code of conduct that would be expected in the practice. So there are some people confused about what's happened with regard to how we transact and actually produce that code of ethic, behaviour and value and beliefs all have to be in tune, and there's no alignment whatsoever between what is happening in Southwest Ireland and the Canary Wharf with all the legislation that came from Brexit, the new framework, etc. That came from my recovery advocacy. So there's discrepancy between what I'm experiencing as a recovery advocate, as a humanitarian, and with what is the humanitarian goal in society that young people, aspirational as they might be with their Aryan views, behaving in a gutter mode. So it'd be wise for people that they assume that they're Aryan. They might look exactly what Aryanism means before they start associating themselves with such a very important psychology, philosophy or concept. These people are exploiting from a purpose that I have not authorised them or entitled them to. So that's a breach of faith, religion and spirituality. Any threats to my child's safety unlawfully from me, and that puts other people's lives at risk. So there's a huge amount I'm having to contend with. I'm waiting patiently. The UN have already been obstructed. So now the Vatican has been alerted to the crimes against the church in Southwest Ireland because of frauds in County Kerry. Again, that have already hurt innocent people's lives with drug addiction. So my best wishes to those recovering from heroin, and my best wishes to those that are healing with the principles that are expected for humanitarian goals to be achieved. But any frauds that are spin doctors, foul-mouthing or defaming, or that have been of blasphemy or profanity, you might be careful about your practices, offending women and children's rights and the Charter. So that's as much as I think I need to say at the moment. This is for the interest of Interpol.